In my shoes, world on my shoulders, heart full of blues out in the dirt, down in the dirt. I've been a real bad boy on the town all night, starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt. Been real bad. I've been a real bad boy on the town all night, starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt, down in the dirt, down in the dirt, down in the dirt.
All right. This is a toast for an opening today that didn't have all the technical difficulties that we had yesterday. It's always good when we figure out all of those little details. Sometimes the first time it's just difficult, right? We're always trying to get better here. We added the music yesterday. We had all sorts of technical difficulties. And so, toast to being back at a more reasonable time. Like I said, yesterday we tried a different stream, different time. It went well, but I know that's kind of a difficult time. I don't want to do work after 5 o'clock. Heck, I started this live stream so that I could quit at like 3 o'clock on a Friday and have some drinks and have some conversations. And so I get that yesterday was a tough day for everybody to make it to the stream, but I appreciate you being here today. So if you didn't make it yesterday, we had an interesting live stream where we had on Rich Hanna, the analytics developer for Lululemon, and we talked a bit about how the big brands are using analytics. And I wanted to follow that up today. This is the first time we've done that, where we had a follow-up stream immediately the next day. So let me know if you like these. But I wanted to go a bit more in-depth about analytics that you should be focusing on and give you more information about how to obtain those statistics. Now, I was introduced to Glue, I don't know, it's got to be a year or two ago now, and was instantly impressed with the tool's capability and was encouraged, and we encourage it for all of our merchants. And so when I decided to talk analytics, then getting somebody on from Glue just made a whole lot of sense to me. So I'd like to welcome Mark Miano, Executive Vice President of Sales from Glue, to the stream. Mark, thanks for joining us this afternoon. If you would, just kind of give us the elevator pitch for Glue.
Yeah, TJ, thanks so much for having me on. Very humbled to be here. And I'll jump right into answering your question. Basically, what Glue is going to be one of the most widely used e-commerce and multi-channel business intelligence systems out there, okay? So what that means is we're taking data and we're manipulating it in a way to provide insights that change behavior inside a merchant or any entity for the more profitable, right? Sounds simple, but it's definitely not. So it might be helpful to go back in time a little bit and to understand the business intelligence, or what I call the BI space legacy. It is a trillion-dollar space with many, many players in it. And there's two things that these many players share, okay? Maybe a couple name drops for you. Tableau, Looker, Domo, Click, Periscope, Power BI, Google Data Studio. I could literally name you 1,000 off the top of my head. The first thing is that, well, they serve all industries. So a Tableau will serve a healthcare system, a law firm, the Weather Channel, anybody and everyone with data they'll work with. Okay, it goes with most BI products. And the second thing is you need more than one. So there are 6 steps, and oftentimes you need 5 or 6 different hardwares or softwares in combination with each other. And those softwares and hardwares need to be developed and maintained by an agency of some sort. So the result are these astronomical 6-7 figure projects that take 12, 24 months. And that's just no good, right? Because only the biggest companies in the world could actually afford such risk. So what we have done here at Glue is we've decided to specialize in one industry, which is e-commerce and multi-channel, right? And by actually specializing in providing business intelligence that one industry, we've been able to crack the code when it comes to developing the highest quality, most profitable insights at the lowest possible cost. And the difference, of course, in that is profit. So you asked for a 30-second speech. I could make it a 30-minute one, but hopefully that answers your question.
Hey, I'm okay with the 30-minute one. It's not really
Okay.
a problem. Just a kind of a public service announcement here so everybody knows. This is a Q&A, so we are here to take your questions, particularly about analytics. You know, if you have any questions about analytics, I'm all for you guys steering the live stream. It makes for a really simple and easy Friday afternoon for me. If you guys ask all the tough questions and I don't have to, then I can just sit back and drink and enjoy it, and it's all good and well. So we are live today on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We cut out Facebook because I'm trying something a little different today. We're actually streaming out in 1080 today. We had trouble with LinkedIn on 1080 in the past. So if you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, let me know the quality. If you have any issues with audio or the stream, please fill me in, let me know. We're constantly adjusting the bit rates and the things that we're putting out to make this more seamless. We've got one question. I've got a series of kind of high-level questions, but we've got one already here in the chat, so we'll jump right into that. And forgive me if I get your name wrong, but it appears as though it's Shubham Parikh. Shubham, I appreciate you watching. Thank you for your question. And he asked WordPress versus Magento, and his question is really, in terms of analytics, in terms of analytics, which suits best, WordPress or Magento or something else? I don't know if you have any kind of input or insight as to maybe different platforms and things and how they handle or provide analytics differently. Any thoughts on the differences in e-commerce platforms in regard to analytics?
That's a really great question. And I think where it boils away is it's more of a question of specificity or customization juxtaposed to a standard offering and a plug and play, right? So when I hear, and we work with every cart system, right? We work with like Demandware, Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, anyone. And the one thing that a Magento and a WooCommerce share is that they're extremely customizable in the back end, right? You can do a lot with a Magento and a WooCommerce, and I've learned that every cart system is actually got its pluses and minuses. The inverse of that is something like Shopify, which is completely, really plug and play and flexible, easy to ramp up and get out of the box. But when it comes to adding tables of some sort, that's probably not going to be the way to go. So it really depends on your business model. I'm not sure if you're an agency or if you're a merchant, but if you're looking to, if you have a simple business, when I say simple, I mean something like clothing or something like very generic, and you have like maybe a few amount of SKUs and you just need something to crunch the data, I actually think that maybe a plug and play like something like very standard and structured like Shopify might be best. If you're looking to have a more complex you have a more complex business and therefore you'll need more customizations on the back end, well then of course I'm going to recommend Magento and Woo. Now, when you say Magento and Woo, I also think sometimes B2B. They're going to be a little bit friendlier to adding tables and such, much like an ERP system when it comes to providing the right data endpoints to analyze on the back end long term. In terms of, when you really want to get down to it, to Magento or WooCommerce, I think that also, again, this is more of a cart question than an analytics question. It's, again, the size of the business and the complexity of the business. I would say, not just because I'm on eCommerceaholics, I would say Magento, if you had to really put a gun to my head about it. I have more experience with Magento and I've had less issues with Magento. Woo seems to break a lot more, which is frustrating to me because my clients want to get to clean data. But if you had to put a gun to my head, I'd definitely say Magento. If you have a complex business with many variables and things of that nature, definitely talk it out with your agency, and definitely have your agency pull in Glue to help coach you and the agency on how to set up the back end of that e-commerce store in order to make sure that when it is time to look at the data and analyze it for the better or for the more profitable, that's not painful. And let me give you an example. So I have 2 Magento clients. Both are actually from the Shark Tank, which is kind of cool. Who doesn't like the Shark Tank, right? One of them kind of shot from the hip in terms of the way they set up their Magento store. And what I mean by that is without thinking, they just thought that the way they set up on the back end is their one Magento store, the way that it was set up, and they meshed their B2B and their B2C clients. It was a clothing company. They had a wholesale business and a B2C business. They meshed both of those data sets into one back end, which makes it very difficult when it comes to plugging in those data endpoints to analyze, right? Because someone who's buying wholesale is obviously going to have much different behavior patterns than someone who's buying for themselves personally. And for example, if I'm looking at the average distance between repeat purchases, so we can get the timing down on your campaigns, well, I'm not going to be able to help you as much if you got your B2B guys in there, right? Because your B2B guys most likely are having much larger distances between those repeat purchases at much higher average order values. So my other client actually set his data up well. Their CTO, he actually didn't talk to me before he bought from us. But what he did proactively is he had that long-term vision to have one backend for B2C and one backend for B2B. And what that immediately solves is when we plug in Glue or whatever analytics source of your choosing, that's going to make it a lot more apples to apples, or in this case, an Apple being B2B and maybe Orange being B2C. It makes it much easier to change your behavior for the more profitable if we're setting everything up correctly. So in sum, TJ, what I would say, just kind of cap off that one question, I wouldn't worry so much about the cart system. Don't get me wrong, we're all partial to our cart system, and each cart system is going to have a strength and weakness depending on your business model. But I think the one thing that you should take away from the answer is definitely consult with your agency and a data expert. I would recommend me over here at Glue to make sure we set you up for success long term.
All right. One thing to clarify there, I'm a Magento guy. I've been with Magento forever. Lucky enough this year to be a Magento master. But we're not Magento homers, right? If Magento's not the right answer, then we want to give you the right answer. We're here to help you out, whether you're a merchant or someone that's just trying to sharpen their e-commerce skills to otherwise participate in the space. So we don't have to be Magento apologists if it's not the right fit, for sure. I wanted to, and again, keep your questions coming. I'm monitoring the chats. That's why I'll click every once in a while to just Mark if I'm standing here. Y'all don't want to see me just sit here and drink while he gives you answers and monitor the chat. So I'm keeping an eye out, and we'll get to those questions as they come in. The question I had, and a lot of our merchants, when we're starting to have that analytics conversation and we start to bring up Glue, is why do I need it? What's the difference in this? Why can't I just use Google Analytics? So I want to give you an opportunity to just kind of go ahead and answer that question. How is Glue different than Google Analytics, and why in the world would anybody need it?
What a great question. And it's a really important one, especially when you're new to analytics, because GA is definitely rich with data, but it's only one data set out of so many that a merchant is typically using here in 2019 to operate, right? I mean, I can name a million off your e-commerce cart, your web traffic, which is Google Analytics, your advertising platforms, your email, your A/B testing, your loyalty, your POS system, there's a lot. And the way to think of it in layman's terms, so I'm not talking up here, we can definitely talk to someone who's non-analytical, is think about reality. You're not using Magento from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then Google Analytics from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then your Klaviyo system from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. to run the business, right? You're using all of that data at once to run the business. Now, that might be oversimplifying it, but let's think of it this way. If you're analyzing your business, you have to analyze your business in the same way that you're operating it. And that is a very painful thing for people to come to grips with. And that's why Google Analytics on its own, which is really just the web traffic coming and going to the website, isn't going to cut it if you really want to make it to the next level of success. So let me give you an example. Profitability, right? We're not here, and correct me if I'm wrong, there might be some people who are okay making $100 and your cost being $101. That would be a great way to lose a lot of money really quickly. So the first thing that you'll do when you come to Glue is we're going to help you make decisions which are profitable for you. How are we going to maximize your profitability? Not concentrate on things which are a means to an end to profitability, like conversion rates or revenue, right? Now, that requires more than just Google Analytics. It requires your revenue channels, right? Your marketplaces, your e-commerce store, your ERP system, your POS system, or whatever you're pulling your revenue in from. It requires your cost of goods sold, which might live in an ERP or a QuickBooks or an accounting system or whatnot. It requires your advertising spend, right? Which is living in Facebook and AdWords and Bing and AdRoll and such. So what I'm trying to say is that, don't get me wrong, Google Analytics is rich for data, and you could probably get by using GA on your own if you're looking to maybe crack the $7 million mark by yourself. But if you're looking to make up to the $5 million mark, the $10 million mark, the $15 million mark, you're going to have to start incorporating all the tools that you're using, all the data that you're using, so we can, of course, make decisions which are most profitable. Now, let's go into a little bit about Google Analytics itself, right? You know, that's high level, and when you talk high level, it can be frustrating, especially in analytics. So if you actually think about it, and you're thinking about profitability for the company, what you're really thinking about maximizing is your profitability per customer, right? You just don't wake up one day and become profitable. You wake up by selling to different customers, and each one of those customer relationships, there's a margin. And at the result, the summation of that margin is the profitability of your store in totality. Now, in order to calculate that, you're going to need two things, minimum. You're going to need your lifetime value, which I'm very excited to talk about in this call because it's probably the most abused and misunderstood, yet and most important metric in all of multi-channel is lifetime value. And you're going to need your customer acquisition costs, because the difference of your LTV per customer and your CAC per customer is your profit per customer. So it's really important we get down to that type of granularity. Google Analytics can't do that. It can't, pull in your customer acquisition costs, which requires advertising spend. But even more frustratingly, it can't pull in your lifetime value because it resets every once in a while, right? Now, I'm not sure how often GA resets nowadays. It's like 90 days, 180 days, or whatever. But when Google Analytics resets, it wipes everything, including your old LTV metric, right? Your lifetime value is your lifetime value for the store. It's not the lifetime, it's not 3 months of value or the past year of value or the past day of value. So what I'm trying to say is that GA is great, but when it comes down to the metrics that matter, it's one piece to a much larger puzzle that needs to be blended together and run through the right calculations in order to get you where you need to go. And I'll
right. keep those questions coming. I've noticed that LinkedIn is on a much longer delay than YouTube. I'm assuming that's because of the quality bump. So I apologize for it taking a little longer to get to the answers to those questions. So just, ping me if the quality's good. Let me know if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching it on LinkedIn. Post in the chat. Let me know if the stream's holding up, if the quality's good, if everything is working for you. Keep those questions coming. I know we got people that roll in and out as the live stream continues to truck along here. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat and we will get them answered. Now, we've talked about Magento a couple of times already on the stream, but you guys support a lot of platforms, which is really one of the benefits of Glue. And so if you would kind of give us a rough breakdown of at least the major e-com platforms, or if you want to talk about some of the other platforms that you support as well, just kind of run through those and let everybody know what you support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am going to start with the e-commerce carts because that's our native, that's where we were incepted, but we'll of course cover a lot. In terms of the e-commerce carts, we have a few that are in production, right? The ones which are completely live, but we also will work with any e-commerce cart. So real quick, Magento, of course, and that goes for every generation of Magento. I know that there's obviously a big move from M1 to M2, but any Magento, Shopify, any Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which was Demandware, PrestaShop for our international, all those international people out there. Not a lot of in the United States, but definitely did PrestaShop. On top of that, we saw this really interesting report where I can't believe it, right? I think it was, I don't want to misquote, I think it was Gartner or maybe Forrester, or it had a breakdown of every single e-commerce store out there and what cart they used in like a pie chart. And it was amazing. It was like 75% of every cart in 2019 was a custom cart system.
Wow.
Holy crap. Wow. Isn't that weird? So we also have this module which actually will plug into a custom cart really, really easily. So my point is that if I didn't rattle off a cart system that you're using, please don't let that be a deterrent to let us help you, because we are an integrations company and we'll work with any cart. Now, outside of that, the next one, of course, of importance is going to be the web traffic, which predominantly is Google Analytics. There are a few competitors that have sprung up to Google Analytics nowadays, especially as tagging is becoming more advanced, that we are looking to work with. And then, of course, there's marketplaces, eBay, all of Amazon, all of that type of strategy, POS systems, especially when you get into multi-channel. A lot of times what I'm seeing is rather going from that brick to click model where you were a legacy brick store and now you're trying to open up your e-commerce, that a lot of new type of companies are starting ironically online, click, and moving to brick. So any POS system we love to work with in helping you understand how to maximize that particular channel. And then, of course, we're going to go to accounting systems, A/B testing, email platforms, loyalty programs, survey systems, CRM systems, hard external databases. The key is every business is different. We have the secret sauce to take that data, run it through the right transformation schemas and the right calculation frameworks to make this bite-sized and digestible for anyone. But maybe that should give a good flavor of in that order of priority. Actually, if you're using any of those systems to wake up and give us give your data some love and take a look at it, because I'm sure there's money hiding in there.
Absolutely. And I'm getting reports from Joshua. Joshua, thanks for reporting this. That, from time to time, LinkedIn is freezing up. I just don't think they can handle a 1080 feed. So not much I can do about that today. I apologize for anybody that's experiencing those issues, and we'll be sure to kind of tune that back down for future streams. But We do have quite a few folks hanging on there in LinkedIn. So, hopefully that's not the case for everybody. But we'll keep going. And, like I said, it's hard to stop it and start it back in the middle of a stream with LinkedIn, unfortunately. Okay, so the ability to run reports and examine data across multiple sources is real interesting for me. That's definitely something that's harder to do with, or impossible to do with, like a Google Analytics. And so can you give us maybe some examples of something really cool that merchants are doing with that capability?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start simple and we'll get more sophisticated because I got a ton of ideas that come to mind. I think the first idea is actually probably one of the most easy ideas to wrap your brain around, which is multi-channel reporting. You could have multiple e-commerce stores. You can have multiple brands as a holding company. You can have multiple revenue channels as a merchant. Heck, you can have multiple clients as a agency, right? And the ability to sum that data into one number and the ability to strip that data back down to everything on a channel format provides profound insight. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, we work with a major liquor distributor. All right. This is pretty cool. And what they have, they just, they redistribute liquor, whiskey, vodka, whatever. And what they have is they have actually a really cool dashboard for their clients who are the liquor companies themselves that they're redistributing for, like, Johnny Walker and, pick your favorite liquor. And they have these really cool dashboards anonymously benchmarking the performance of those brands right in front of their particular supplier. So now think about that. Johnny Walker can now say, I wonder how my brand is performing against all the other whiskey brands in North America. Am I third in sales out of all the whiskey brands? Am I first in sales? Because seeing that third-party benchmarking, anonymously and ethically, of course, we're not going to share with anyone data that shouldn't be shared, but that provides profound third-party points of view in terms of if I am at the top of the pack or if there is room to improve. Because if I know for a fact that there's room to improve, well, then I know it's worthwhile to change my behavior, which is, of course, the whole point, is that cost-benefit analysis of if changing behavior actually is worth it. Now, you can blow that out to, again, multi-brands or multi-channels, right? And, of course, profitability, LTV, all that good stuff. The second thing that's pretty cool when you're taking multiple sources together, especially for e-commerce, not multi-channel, is going to be going back to attribution modeling, right? The art or science of assigning sales credit to different touch points in a customer journey. Attribution modeling. Let's think about that again. The art or science of assigning sales credit to different touch points in a customer journey. Well, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a lot of touch points in a customer journey. So assigning sales credit, which is coming out of the e-commerce cart, to different touch points in a customer journey, which is coming out of the web traffic system, Google Analytics, or if you're bigger, Google 360 or any CDP system or whatever, is arbitrary. Do I give all the sales credit to the first purchase, the first click, the last click? Do I spread it evenly across the board? How do you want to go about doing that? And that is a really good example of, number one, taking more than one source and blending them together for deeper insight. But it's also a really good example of why you need an expert, someone that knows what they're doing, to coach you on what particular attribution model and method to use. And that goes back to the goals you're trying to accomplish, right? Are you a high-end medical device company selling $5,000 pieces of equipment where the sale expectation is one item per customer? Or are you a makeup company that is okay losing money on the first sale, only to recoup and make that that particular relationship with that particular customer more profitable on the second, third, fourth, or fifth sale? every business is a little bit different. And that attribution modeling exercise is definitely one that you want someone close to, someone who knows what they're doing to help you out with. I was actually at IRCE a couple of weeks ago. I actually saw TJ, I saw you there. And I was sitting in a webinar, one of those seminars with a company called Native and a company called Nectar Mattress. Really smart guys. And the guy that started Nectar Mattress, I forget his name, it escapes me. He brought up basically what was Glue's architecture. And we were talking about attribution modeling, and I couldn't believe it. I raised my hand in front of, it's kind of nerve-wracking raising your hand in front of like 1,000 people. And I had to ask, I was like, hey man, did you come up with that on your own? Or was that painfully done over long periods of time? And he actually laughed and said, oh my God, you have no idea how painful it was for me to create this thing from scratch. It was a lot of money flushed down the toilet, and a lot of trial and error. And what's exciting now is that it's 2019, soon to be 2020, if you can believe it. And you don't need to be a Harvard graduate and have $1 million cash in the bank anymore in order to do what Nectar did. You now can just call Glue because we have all the back end set up and can spend all of our time consulting with you on what attribution model you should be using, how assigning sales credit to this touch point over that touch point will provide dark spots or enlighten you and all that good stuff. I think the next example is really profound when it comes to blending disparate data sources together, is going to be when you're getting a qualitative set of data and marrying that as close as you can with a quantitative set of data. So what do I mean by this? Okay. One of the sources that we integrate with is Zendesk, all right? Zendesk, if for those not familiar, is like a customer service management platform. Let's say I bought a pair of pants and there was a hole in it, right? And I wanted to figure out how to get a refund or get my need met by my merchant. Typically, you're using like Freshdesk or Zendesk or something. We will integrate with anything, but right now in production, which is Zendesk. Well, what if I am the customer service director of a large clothing company and I need to start understanding how my portion of the company can add profitability to my company, to my boss, my CEO? Well, how about this for a cool metric, which we do? In Zendesk, you can provide a star rating, right? Hey, what was your experience? 1 star or 5 stars? We all know what that looks like. What if we had a LTV associated with a specific star rating? Think about that. Qualitative data, which is the rating, married up to the quantitative data, which is the number of dollars associated with that rating. Think of this. I have a client who actually found out that he didn't need to get 5-star ratings in order to make his company more profitable. He could have 4-star ratings. And that immediately tells him and changes behavior inside the entire organization that, hey guys, we're actually okay with getting 4-star ratings, because if I can be okay with 4-star ratings and not 5-star ratings, I can churn through more tickets faster and I can reach more people and I can satisfy more customers up to the point where it affects the bottom line of my business. Now, you can take that same qualitative and quantitative exercise, which is blending, in this case, Zendesk data with the revenue data, more often found out of the e-commerce platform. But you can take that and maybe provide it to surveys. So right now I'm in a conversation with a company that sells medicine to relieve pain. And for them, they're, what's your pain in order from 1 to 10? Qualitative data. And matching up that pain measurement with, again, the amount of money associated with each level of pain. Maybe people who have a 10 in terms of the extremity of their pain, maybe that particular piece of medicine doesn't relieve the pain enough in order for that person in severe pain to be the right customer for that pain reliever company. Maybe it's only a pain out of between 4 to 7 that particular pain reliever is good for. And all of a sudden, that pain reliever company selling that medicine knows what their right customer is, so they can change behavior inside the company to concentrate on people who have a medium amount of pain and not an amount of pain which is so extreme where they need to actually maybe consult and get some professional help, right? So those are just like 3 or 4 examples of what it means to truly blend data together. And I'll stop there.
No, that was great. That was great. Keep your questions coming. Doesn't look like maybe we exhausted all the analytics questions there are in the world yesterday, but I'm not seeing any new questions in the chat. So it's going to make this at least a little bit less interesting live stream, because my questions are all just high level. But if you happen to be new around here, you might want to consider subscribing if you're on YouTube, or if you're on LinkedIn, giving me a follow. I don't know if it's even really possible to find out about a live stream unless you're already following me, but that is what it is. We're trying to get back into a regular schedule here where we stream at least once a week. I posted a video over on YouTube today. I did link to it on LinkedIn. It's my final travel vlog from the 28-day road trip we took last month. I suck at travel vlogging, so this is the last one I'm doing. If you want to see the last travel vlog I'll ever do, then click on it, watch it, enjoy it, or don't enjoy it. Whatever works for you. Doesn't really matter to me. So I want to talk about now kind of, let's try to get to some practical advice here, right? I mean, we've talked about some interesting hypotheticals. Hopefully that sparked some interest, some curiosity for people, maybe gave them some ideas as to something they could start doing with their own business. But if I send you a merchant, and they're very uneducated when it comes to analytics, can we go through maybe some of the first things they should start doing, start tracking, and then maybe, what insights they should try to gather from that setup?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's funny because it's a popular question. It's the first question I get. And before we can get there, the biggest mistake I've seen people make is not taking the time to understand just what is going in, what has to be done in order to get where you want to go, right? Everyone wants to talk about their KPIs, and everyone wants an immediate ROI, and everyone wants to change their behavior as soon as possible. But very few people are willing to sit down and take a breath and to think critically about what they're about to embark on. The first thing that I actually do is I resolve, in the analytics world, what is called the principal agent problem. And actually, it's not just a analytics problem. It actually goes for anything. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Have you ever gone to the car mechanic? I'm not picking on car mechanics because we all need them. But you ever go to the car mechanic and your car broke down, and they say, "Hey, Mark, we found out what's up. You need a new engine, and that'll be 20 grand." And you're thinking to yourself, well, I mean, I knew I heard it clicking. I didn't think I needed a new engine. I mean, can I trust this guy? Like, does he just want to buy a ticket to Hawaii for his family? Or, do I really need a new engine? Like, I don't know anything about cars, right? Like, I'm just going to have to take his word for it or get a second opinion. And so in the same metaphor, what I try to do, and unfortunately what I've seen in the analytics world, is you have these salespeople who just try to get the sale, and they'll just say anything in order to turn a sale. And then the merchant is hit with all of these blindsided costs and steps and long timelines, and oh wait, we got to do this, and it's a nightmare. And that's when things get really bad and they give up. So what I typically do, TJ, is I first typically walk them through the 6 steps that we have to knock out first in order for them to get where they want to go. And that way, if glue's the right one, after that's satisfied, I mean, we normally are, because we're the only one that does provide all 6 steps into the same subscription. Or if they want to go try to find another person, knowing what those 6 steps are to piece together those 6 steps, that's okay too. But as long as the merchant is making money and doing it in the cheapest way possible, especially when it comes to analytics, then I've done my job. And that's our mantra here at Glue. So in terms of what those 6 steps are, and then I'll go into the KPIs, the first step that you got to do, there's 6 of them, and they have to be done in order for you to get where you want to go. The first step is called the integrations pipeline. So what that means is before anything can happen, we can talk about your KPIs. We got to get that data out of where it is in the cloud or in your database, and we got to bring it into one place. Now, this is not unique to Glue. There's a lot of people that do it, but I want you to think of it as like a file in your computer. So that's like downloading a file. It could take a long time. It could take a short time. It could break, but that has to happen. The second step that has to happen is all of that data has to be transformed. It's called ETL, and it stands for extract, transform, and load. And this is where everyone buys a BI tool, they buy Tableau or Looker or whatever, and then their costs skyrocket, and they get pissed, people get fired, it's awful. And the way to think of it is all this data has to be transformed into a singular structure before we can actually use all that data together at once. So what is, let's say, revenue in Amazon ain't revenue in Magento, right? We just can't sum those tables together and start running it through KPIs. We have to transform that data so we can add them. Or if you're in the Shopify world, Shopify is in UTC time zone, and its subscription partner, Recharge, is in Eastern time zone. I mean, that's 5 hours apart. How are you going to get your timing down when it comes to your email campaigns if your revenue streams are 5 hours apart? Makes no sense. So those are 2 very small examples of an infinite amount that you're going to have to handle those headwinds in order to start thinking of the KPIs that you want to start running. The third thing is maintaining the data. That's expensive as hell. The fourth thing is having some type of BI tool to work that data in. The fifth piece are the calculations, which I'm obviously going to talk about right now. And then the sixth piece is delivering it. So there's a lot going on here. And again, I encourage you, Glue might not be the right fit for you. That's okay. But you need to be educated and know what you're doing before you start getting out your pocketbook and swiping your credit card for analytics systems. You need to be aware. Now, after we have the data primed and after we run it through the calculations, which is what we do, there's a specific framework that I suggest that my clients use. And this is it, okay? We want to max profit. There, I said it. I actually watched the webinar yesterday, and it was very common for a digital marketer, especially as seasoned as that gentleman from Lululemon, to really care about revenue and conversion rates. But remember, we're talking about the CEO, right? Not just the digital marketing department. The CEO doesn't care about revenue, and he doesn't care about conversion rates. He cares about profit. And that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. Now, in terms of the metric for profit, there are 2 of them. There's going to be the lifetime value, like I mentioned before, and the customer acquisition cost. We have to get to those 2 things before we can start understanding any level of profitability. Now, what I typically like doing is describing LTV, because everyone knows what CAC is, but what is LTV? Well, LTV is the amount of money that someone's going to spend with you as a merchant until that customer dies. Sad, but that's what it is. Now, what you're going to find is that LTV is an equation. It's the average order value of a group of people multiplied by the purchase frequency of a group of people, right? The more they buy from you and the more often they buy from you, the more profitable that relationship, juxtaposed to the CAC. Now, you'll find that there's companies who are average order value heavy. They're relatively rare, but there's more clients that are purchase frequency heavy. My example of a purchase frequency heavy client is anyone that expects more than one sale from its customer. Even a phone case company is actually a purchase frequency heavy company because, it'll be 3 years before I buy another phone case, but this is an OtterBox. OtterBox very much hopes that I have such a great experience with OtterBox that the next time it's time to buy a phone case, I just go to that website and buy that next OtterBox. That's the way to grow the business. So the first thing I'm going to be coaching you on before we get to the KPIs is what are the goals? And the goal for a purchase frequency heavy company is attracting the right customer and upselling that customer. That's it. There are only two goals. And if you've heard any of my, if you've ever talked to me before, I've always used this metaphor because it's kind of humorous. Is I bought a bikini recently for my wife off of one of our clients' websites that sells women's bikinis. And I always joke it was a gift. I am not that company's right customer. I'm a dude that lives 5 hours from the beach. So if they're scratching their head wondering why Mark Miano isn't buying a second bikini, it's because I'm a dude that lives 5 hours at the beach and I'm not a chick that lives in Miami or close to water, right? So we want to acquire the right customer and then upsell them. Now, what I typically do is I typically open up the system and we look at that LTV, not at any given moment in time, but the fluctuation of that LTV over time. I know it's tough, but we want to think spatially. And we want to see that LTV rise and fall, right? And we want to see that line have a very specific shape, which is moving slow and steady. Like imagine like a very slow and steady rise to a hill, maybe like a 30-degree angle, moving over time, because that slope of that LTV curve is in fact demonstrating if you're accomplishing both of the goals, which are typically the goals for an e-commerce client, which is attracting the highest paying customer and upselling. The upsell is pushing the LTV up, right? If I were to cut acquisition altogether for any company who expects more than one purchase from a customer, that LTV would spike and then start plateauing hard due to diminishing marginal returns, right? How many bikinis does one lady need, especially one dude, right? Which is why I need the new customer. Each new customer is starting with a lifetime value of 0. And new customer acquisition pushes LTV down. They haven't bought anything from you before that first purchase. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. In fact, I was on a call with a pesticide company, and she was getting hosed by her board of directors because her LTV was falling. Well, sadly, she didn't talk to me before that call because her revenue was growing. And then we saw that her new customers were growing too. So she wasn't doing a bad job of running the business. All she needed to educate her PE firm on was, hey, look, I just set ourselves up for success for the next 2 years. I now have 3,000 new customers to sell back into. And you know what that is? That's profit. Sounds like money to me. And that's a really important thing, right? So I think that would probably be the most important thing, is understanding LTV and having a kumbaya moment as to what success actually looks like, and different charts and graphs inside our system as well as theirs, so that they know what they're actually doing and they're not just getting analysis paralysis by staring at a grid of numbers, hoping for a little voice in their head to tell them what to do, you know? Hey, I can't hear.
Am I muted here? See, I muted myself, and that's the problem with muting yourself. You always forget to unmute yourself. Just had a little background noise here, so I muted, but that's great advice. You know, definitely some of the first things you need to focus on. If you've got questions, please post them in the chat. We will get around to them. We've been going now for about 50 minutes, so you may have time for one or two more questions. We do have one in the chat, but I wanted to remind everybody we'll be streaming every week. If there's a particular, we're here for you. So if there's a particular topic you would like for me to cover, if you would like for me to go out and find an expert to talk about something that's useful to you, let me know in the chat. Or if you happen to be catching this afterwards, post it in the comments, and I will do my best to find somebody from a particular business or a particular industry to get you more information. The question we have here is from Christian Olofsson. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I'm not really sure how to pronounce the 2 S's in a row there. If there's some particular accent I need to put on that. But Christian, thank you for watching, and I appreciate your question. And Christian's question is, any advice on customer segmentations? How does the data blend play a role in this piece?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in terms of customer segmentation, there's so many ways to do it. And I'll start where you want to begin, and then we'll move into the blending of the data, much like we did with the Zendesk and the surveys type thing. So the first thing that I would do, if I were you, is I would take your customers and put them on a bell curve, right? And then, by the way, our systems do this automatically, but if you wanted to do it yourself, take your customers, let's say there's 1,000 of them, put them on a bell curve of revenue, and you're going to want to look at the tail ends of that bell curve. What we call the higher revenue tail is the VIP customer. VIP customer. Our definition of that is the top 10% of your customer base by revenue. Okay. What you want to see is about 40% of your annual revenue coming from the top 10% of your customer base. That's standard stuff. In fact, like old school BI, like I'm talking like people who would charge $500,000 like Coca-Cola or something. First thing they say is, what percentage of my annual revenue is coming from this segment, that segment, this segment, that segment? Big value add and good way to understand your business. Now, if it's over 40%, you're going to want to most likely acquire more women that live on the beach, or that's my metaphor for the right customer. Because what you're doing is you're depending on too few people for too much of your business. For example, I work with this like really high-end arts and crafts company out in the UK. And when we logged in, they saw that like 70% of their annual revenue was coming from the top 10% of their customer base. I mean, God forbid one of those people, something bad happens to them or something, like you're going to be out of a lot of revenue really quick. So you got to go hunt down more of those people. And there's all kinds of ways to do that, which I'm not going to get into right now. Maybe a loyalty program or something, right? The best digital marketing in the world will actually pale in comparison to the leads that your happiest customers will bring to you on their own if you treat them well, right? Now, the other end of that tail is going to be maybe not the 10% of your least paying customers. Maybe that's a waste of time. Maybe it's what we call the value shoppers, where we find people who only buy at a discount. Man, there are really aggressive bargain hunters out there who will not buy anything from you unless there's some type of discount involved. Now, I'm a huge believer in discounting stuff, but only when the value received in return for that discount outweighs the discount itself, right? It's much like debt. We all can't be Lululemon, right? Like Lululemon is a very unique brand in the fact that they don't discount. Like that's their MO, or I mean, at least they don't do it a lot. But, for most companies, it makes sense to discount. For example, let's say you want to get people to buy for the first time, in the expectation that they come back for a second time and buy at full price. That makes sense. That is good. That's cool. So that would be the other thing. You want to see about 5 to 15% of your annual revenue coming from people who only buy at a discount, because what that means is that you're using discounting and you're leveraging discounting in a profitable way, and you're not having that race to the bottom, right? You don't want to get caught in that deadly discount trap. In terms of segments and how to blend the data, think about the first thing that comes to mind for me is a loyalty program. So like we integrate with Loyalty Lion, Smile, Yapo, which I think bought Swell recently. We work with all of them. And what's very helpful is understanding and segmenting your base by, let's say, their loyalty points and anything else that you like, right? Maybe their average order value, or let's say maybe the number of discounts they've made or whatever, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say that I had a certain threshold of loyalty points for my loyalty program, right? 1,000 is where I top out at, and 1 is my least loyal customer. What if I wanted to reward people with a discount that have a certain amount of loyalty points? Well, you know what you're not going to want to do? You're not going to want to get people who are buying at full price. I mean, there's an argument to be made either way, right? But like I'm thinking to myself, maybe what I do is I give a discount to people who always buy at a discount that have some loyalty points, but maybe I send them products that I just want to get rid of. And maybe for the people who have a higher amount of loyalty points, I let them discount things which are a little bit more expensive. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about this on the top of my head, but I think Christian is onto something when it comes to segmenting out using more than one data source. Typically, people just use Shopify or whatever, but being able to do that by, you know what? I have another example actually. This is better. I work with this company that sells home automation systems, and what he found out was that people who convert first from Bing were a little bit older, and people who convert first from CPC Google were a little bit younger. And he was using that to segment that out by age because he didn't actually have age pulled in through his e-commerce cart system. And so older people were segmented out and got older messaging. Hey, you know, the messaging is more about like fear of loss and your house and stuff like that. Or people who are a little bit younger for a security system actually weren't sent security systems. They were sent like just the cameras, because younger people kind of nerd out and being able to see things like the doorbell and stuff like that. So he was able to segment out based on the channel that the particular customer converted from. And assuming that older people converted first from Bing and younger people converted first from CPC Google, he was able to target those people with different sets of products that are typically bought more by each respective age group. I think that's a better example. Hey, DJ,
Definitely
you're on
an
mute.
interesting example. I know. As soon as I clicked the button and I started talking, I'm like,
Yeah.
damn it, I'm on a mute again. And I look over there and I see my audio levels are blue, which means I'm muted. It's just one of those. It's Friday afternoon, man.
Yeah.
You know how it is. It looks like we've got all of the questions in the chat answered. So I think that means we're just going to call it a day. We're going to get on about our Friday afternoon. I've got a couple of businessy things to do, some calls to make this afternoon before I get to go start enjoying my weekend. So I wanted to thank you, Mark, for coming on and answering questions and providing us with some great insights. If you would just kind of let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they want to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. You can write into Glue or you can email me. Well, our domain is glew.io, like Indian Ocean. And my email address is mark, M-A-R-K, Miano, Miano. It's like piano, but with an M instead of a P, at glew.io. And we're very excited for you to reach out.
And if you have any questions after this is over with, please just post them in the chat. I'll reach out to Mark. I'll make sure we get those answered. With that, I think we're going to call it a day. Do me a favor, share this out on social. Thumbs up, whatever platform you happen to be watching this on. We definitely want to continue to expand the audience and see if we can't have a bigger impact and help get more questions and get those questions answered. You know, we want to help as many merchants as we can get more from their e-commerce store. And so with that, we're going to see how this exit actually, sometimes this exit just goes crazy. So we're going to see if it actually works. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Looks like YouTube is already done, but LinkedIn is lagging way behind.
Weird.
So if anybody on LinkedIn happens to be hearing me, I'm going to wait this out just to make sure that the logo comes up. But LinkedIn just does not handle 1080 video at all. Like it's beta, it's new, and we keep trying to push the limits of it apparently. So just don't say anything you don't want anybody to hear, because who knows, they might hear it. They'll definitely hear it on YouTube. People on YouTube right now are listening. Like, what the heck? Why are they still
What's
talking?
up?
I'm trying to wait for this logo to show up on LinkedIn. People, if you happen to still be watching, there's still 7 people watching right now. They're like, why are they talking over the logo? I thought this was over. But it's still not shown on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very, 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 very slow. Like I don't know. I'm having a lot of trouble out of LinkedIn. I like the platform. They just need to iron out some kinks. And if I cut stream right now, for those that happen to be watching on YouTube, if I cut stream right now, then it'll probably just stop. Oh no! See, I'm seeing like the question we answered. Jeez, I'm afraid to cut the stream because it might not finish on LinkedIn, and that guy won't get his answer shown on LinkedIn. Oh no! I gotta cut it. It's over. We'll see.
Okay. I see it.
Now, I mean, you can hang out for a second, but I'm going to stop
Oh, cool.
the other people that might be listening to this.